Welcome to another episode of Kiss My Assets.
The transparency, the openness, the communication is more than you could expect. I'm sold.
Don't let the fact that you don't know something or don't know enough about something hold you back.
I knew I wanted to invest. What better way to invest than to invest in what I already know that I love, which is real estate.
It was initially the 12% return, but it quickly turned into the people.
We're back for another episode of Kiss My Assets. Me, Heather Andrews, investor relations, and I like to think eye candy, but also Bart, our director of marketing, who is, again, still very fun and cool. We're glad he's still here. And Jamison Manwaring, our fearless leader, who is very happy with the job I do. So we're going to just start bold, being that we are a multifamily company. And what we know right now is rents are too damn high, according to a lot of people, but still better than a mortgage. That they're finding that the median renter in the U.S., 29% of their income goes to rent, which is still a lot of money to give away. It's down a little bit from last year, 30%. It's still much cheaper than owning a home, paying a mortgage, except for in just, I think, four little areas that are probably lovely places, but I don't want to visit. Bart, do you remember what places they were?
Yeah, it was Detroit, Philly, Cleveland, and Houston.
And do you have vacations planned there this year?
No.
See, I think it proves
no
our point right
vacations.
there. And so like we said, we're always watching to see what rents are doing.
So rent surged during the pandemic. Do you have any, your expertise, do you have any input as to why that was?
We didn't really know why rents started moving up, but it corresponded and correlated with the costs of houses moving up because people were living and staying in their home a lot more because they weren't going to the office. So they decided they wanted to trade out and move into a nicer place. So it ended up driving up the price of homes. Also, the Fed brought interest rates down, way down to incentivize the market. Mm-hmm. So it made the cost of homes much cheaper.
I was one of those people.
Yeah. And so, as the rates came down, it ended up driving rents because the cost of houses.
Yeah, houses were free for a while, and I took advantage.
You got in at the right time.
You did. I did. And this is my whole personality now. I'm so proud of it. But yes, now they are not free. But I think that, right, there's two reasons, right? Not only housing, the mortgage rates going up and that there's no supply, there's for still a lot of demand. People are preferring to rent more and more. We're seeing that in a lot of different groups, that multifamily apartments are more interesting to people. That fits their lifestyle better.
New York is one of the areas that is an outlier where over half of your income goes to rent. Nationally, it's about 30%. But if you're in New York, you just realize I have to make more of it has to go to rent.
And it was worth it. I'm just standing up for New York a little bit. It was worth every penny.
And so it's psychologically, it's in New York, you're just used to that.
Yeah.
But the rest of the country has now started to catch up where rents have moved up. It's become a larger piece of their income. And the thing that will always correspond with rents is the cost to buy. If the cost to buy is less than rents, then less people will rent. But if it's cheaper to rent, then more people will keep renting than buying. So except for a few outliers in the U.S., most major cities, it's cheaper to rent. And so people keep doing it.
Yeah, which is great for us as a multifamily investment company.
We love to see it. Not only, right, we're seeing more people renting because that's what's available. It's cheaper. The attitude about homeownership, or the American dream of homeownership, that's shifting. And that's the thing that really interesting to me, is this evolution of the American dream, or the reimagining of it that's happening. And so Americans, as they poll them, they're finding, I think it's the second year in a row, Americans think it's not a great time to invest in a home. We know why. But also their optimism, it's down to 21%. So that's 9 points less than a year ago. Think that they're optimistic about owning a home, or thinking that's a good investment. The thing that I really loved about, or thought was interesting about it, is that they did the same poll, the same question in 1978. They did it again in 1991. So first 53% in 1978 still wanted own a home. They were excited. That was their dream. 67% in 1991 still loved the idea. That is what they were aiming for. And now here we are in 2023 down to 21%. And I think there's a variety of reasons for that, and not all of them negative. There's some interesting things on why the American dream has changed, and it's positive. And so I think we should talk about that. I want your opinions.
Yeah. It's weird looking at this because in 30 years, to summarize what you just said, 30 years, it's gone from 67% to 21% for a desire to own a home. So that's a 46%, 46-point swing, which is crazy. And looking at it, I think Americans, Millennials, Gen Z, they're more inclined to consider the costs of renting versus buying, and then also just how flexible it is to rent versus buying a home. I think those are two things that are really important for me. Jameson, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I've seen my older siblings. I'm the youngest of 8 kids, so my oldest siblings, when they kind of reached adulthood, it was really important for them to get a home, like in their 20s. And now I see that shifted around my time frame. Most of my friends wanted to get into a home, but now I see my nieces and nephews. That's not really on their radar. They value different things. They value working on their career, having the ability to be flexible with where they live, and I think they do want to own a home, especially as they start settling down and getting a family. It kind of corresponds, but we know that starting a family has been pushed a little later. Owning a home has been pushed a little later. And I do think that the American dream, owning a home was always promoted as the American dream. You got to own a home, start your family. That is not the way that it is anymore. People realize that owning a home isn't all it's cracked up to be. It can be a great way to save some money, but it isn't what most people want to do right now. So we've seen a total shift. As you said, in 91, 67% thought owning a home is what it was all about. Now it's 21%.
Yeah.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
So with this 21% of people it's dropped to that 21% of people who are still optimistic about the home ownership. I think a big part of that drop, not only millennials having different ideas about quality of life and how they want to rent or buy. We have our first wave of Gen Z coming onto the market. They're graduating college, they're going out into the big bad world, and they're making some decisions that are I think affecting multifamily. They found that 92% believe that home prices are a big significant hurdle, so they're really thinking about money in a different way, and they think it's not worth the money. And the 68% are excited, I think, interested in the flexibility that renting provides, and also 63% say it's less stressful. That's a very holistic attitude. I think I'm like, bring on the stress. That's how I thrive. That's how I know I'm alive. They're like, no, I want quality of life. What makes the most sense and is kind of the easiest. So you tell me what you think.
So yeah, the Gen Z is like 1997 to 2012.
Yep.
So they're still very young relative to the major cohorts ahead of them, baby boomers, Gen X.
Yeah.
But it's important to see where they're going and how they're thinking about things as an investor, as a property owner, and they are certainly piggybacking off this trend that millennials started, where it's more about experiences, it's more about life quality. They're going to be different in some ways, definitely, but they aren't automatically assuming that they need to own a home, similar to how the millennials viewed it differently. And the data is backing it up, where 92% of them, so 9 out of 10 are saying owning a home's bogus. It's not worth it. Now
that's for their grandpa.
Yeah, it's going to change because they're still really young.
Yes.
But that mindset is how they're looking at it.
Yeah, I think another thing to point out too is right here it says 68% of respondents believe renting is more flexible than owning, which makes total sense. You look at Gen Z, you look at millennials, and they're job hopping. Every time I hop on LinkedIn, it's all the boomer generations, the older demographics that I'm connected with on LinkedIn. They're locked in.
Very cool.
They're 30 years in.
Like you're
same
name dropping
job,
your young friends.
But all my younger friends, that are around my age, maybe a little bit older, I feel like every 6 months they're in a different career, a different job, which correlates with, renting being more flexible than owning a home,
So the other thing with the Gen Z generation, the pandemic's going to have a big impact on the rest of their life. And they're identifying more with wanting to live near the city, but more in a suburban area, not necessarily down in the core. And a lot of millennials across the country wanted to live more in the core, more downtown. Gen Z is wanting a little bit more space. Again, they're early. They're still figuring it out, but this is what we're seeing right now. They want a little bit more space. They don't want to live out in the suburbs like the baby boomers did, but a closer suburb is something that they're interested in. They're still interested in walkable areas, but we'll see how this plays out because it's going to be a bit of a shift.
I thought that was my favorite part, is this kind of, we have, baby boomers out in the suburbs. That was the goal, to get as far away from the city, big bad city, as you could. Shifting to millennials downtown where it's exciting. I want to walk everywhere. And millennials are kind of bringing it to the middle, or not millennials, Gen Z to the middle of, I want the best of both worlds. They're really big fans of, I think, public transportation. We're growing up, we would never go on a bus. That was so scary. Now we have the light rail, and they're more willing to travel in different ways, and ways that are more sustainable. And but they're wanting to have that suburb experience with all the accessibility of downtown. And so I think these buildings, a lot of buildings that are being built, are just full of all these amenities. They're making sure the Wi-Fi has to be high speed. They have to be, their tech has to be on point, and it has to feel still like a home.
Yeah, if you're building a building right now and you're thinking this building's going to serve residents for 40, 50 years, you need to be thinking about the technology that you're putting in there. So it's not just about having good, solid construction and having some amenities, a pool or whatever those amenities are. It needs to be tech heavy. It needs to have good Wi-Fi. It
can never go out.
You need to be able to plug stuff in.
Yep.
You need to be able to come in and have kind of this plug and play experience, because the one thing we do know about Gen Z is they live on their phone in a way that's completely different than other generations.
Call them digital natives.
They need to be able to come in and have that experience at the house. And so I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for me as I think about development, that when you look at the budget to build something, and when you look at what the inputs are, you need to put some capital aside strictly for how digital will this property be.
Yeah, and I think on the other side of development, where you have property management, it becomes extremely important to make sure that, your property online looks amazing, because, it talks about in here about these digital natives, Gen Z, they kind of have already decided that they're going to move into this place based on virtual tours, going online, looking at pictures, seeing all the amenities. When they show up, they're pretty much ready to sign the lease, in my opinion. That's my assumption. So for a property manager, in order to keep leases filled, having that good web presence and good pictures online and virtual tours is essential.
Which is very different. In my house, I have some smart lights in my kitchen, and I spend most of my time screaming at them to turn on or off. I am not made for that. You can put me in a cave. But they have grown up on the internet. They understand how it works. So God bless them.
I remember there's a time period where clappers for lights.
Yes.
That was
those are amazing.
But now, I feel like Gen Z would laugh at that.
I would prefer that to me yelling,
I think it'll
"Hey
be
Google."
Full circle. Yeah. I can see basically that's Alexia or what? Alexa is basically the clapper on steroids.
She's
but it's
like
basically
a
the same
roommate
idea.
in my house, and I don't love that. I need to evict her.
So the takeaway from that is Alexa and the clapper are one and the same.
Yes. So as we're talking about all these multifamily developments, especially here in Arizona, water is a big part of that. And I don't think I realized that till I was a grown up, how much water is necessary when it comes to developments. And so we have a little bit of a drought, maybe. And the Colorado River is being a little finicky. And so there's something big that happened that Jamison, you can tell us about, with President Biden even got involved. He's also concerned about the Colorado.
Yeah, the administration got involved because they saw some problems with the negotiation between California and Arizona. And we had on a water rights specialist on the podcast about 3 weeks ago. One of the things to remember is that Phoenix uses less water today in 2023 than we did in the 1950s, with 1 million people at that time, and now we're approaching 5 million. We use less water today.
We're very good at conservation.
So there's been a lot of transition.
Yeah.
conservation, sustainability, and the biggest change is we are not an agriculture society anymore, or agriculture valley anymore. We've replaced fields with homes and subdivisions that typically
And
have
manufacturing plants.
desert landscaping
Yeah.
and no lawns.
Yeah.
So we've been doing our part, but most of the water that comes from the Colorado River goes to California. They have the first rights. And so there has been a dispute as we've been in this huge drought, where we've all seen Lake Mead and Lake Powell go way down in the water table.
Yeah.
And so the administration came in, and instead of leaving it up to the states to negotiate, the administration came in and helped negotiate what we'll do until 2026. We now go into negotiations for beyond 2026, and that happens immediately.
Mhm.
But the biggest, one of the biggest changes that's happened in the last 6 months is we had the biggest winter and snowpack that we've had
So much rain.
in many decades.
Yeah.
And we're going to see Lake Mead and Lake Powell over the next 6 months as that snowmelt occurs. We're going to see that water level raise, and that actually helps a lot more than anything Washington, D.C. is going to do in the administration. So I was glad to see that they're stepping in. They've helped negotiate this. That's helpful. Mother Nature is a lot more helpful, and she did her part.
She
big
got tired of
time
us like
this last round.
talking behind her back, and she's like, "Watch me."
Yeah, right when we needed it, the nature came through big
It's
time.
because my mom prayed for rain. I felt.
We get a lot of questions from people outside of the state who are looking to invest in it, whether it's Arizona or other Southwest markets. What's going on with the water? It's a big question.
Yeah.
Because there has been a lot of news reports about the drought that we're in. And now we have some more clarity, which is helpful. And we hope we have some additional good winners, which will be even more helpful. But this negotiation is helpful for Arizona because California is higher in the totem pole.
Even
That's
though we
probably-
took all the residents.
Yeah, everyone's moving from California, but they still have the best rights.
They all moved here. And look, and I just want to say I'm doing my part because I exist mostly on Diet Coke. And so I'm leaving plenty of water for everyone else. You're welcome.
No water in Diet Coke.
Nope.